Down to FM 98.9. We break from our regular program to join another edition of Working for You.
Our courts and we have our prison system. I have with me in the studio judiciary system. Of course, we know we have law enforcement, we have our courts, and we have our prison system. I have with me in the studio Mr. Eric Rochester, who is the prison sergeant at HMP. I have Inspector Virgil Hodge, who has responsibility for the rehabilitation program at Her Majesty's Prison. And I have Inspector Charles Molyneux, who is the principal officer and the shift leader at Her Majesty's Prison. Welcome to all three of you. Of course, the role of the prison system has shifted significantly over the years. There has been a paradigm shift. And once ago, when people hear about prison, they only thought about it in terms of punishment. You commit an offense, and so therefore you are convicted in a court of law, you are sentenced and to prison, and you are punished. Well, prison is much more than just punishment. And so therefore, in order to view the prison system comprehensively, we have to move beyond punishment and look at how prisoners can be reformed and how they can be rehabilitated. So that will be the focus this afternoon in terms of what is happening at the prison. Of course, you know, who we have there are human beings. They have rights, they must be cared for, and so on, so that they can be fully reintegrated into the society. Those, of course, who will re-enter into society. And so our discussion this afternoon will center mainly around that. And that is why we have here Inspector Virgil Hodge, who will speak to us about the rehabilitation program at the prison. So I will start with you, Inspector Hodge. Why is it so important to promote this idea of rehabilitation for the inmate?
Good afternoon to our listening audience. Well, to answer your question, Lesroy, first of all, what is rehabilitation? How do we deal with it, especially in the prison community, right? And as a senior member of the rehabilitation program at Her Majesty's Prison, I have not failed to take notice that the prospective structure of this advanced approach towards rehabilitation will not only guarantee success in both lives of the inmates and also the staff as well. And it also decreases the rate of recidivism, right? We find prisoners go in, they come back, go out, come back in, go out, come back in. And that is one of our main goals, is to prevent that. And we have many programs in the prison. I would name a few, like the academic program, the RGI ban, well-known RGI ban. We have tailoring, agriculture, we have mechanic, welding, construction, just to name a few. And what we do mostly there, first of all, we educate. We educate the prisoners, and if I want to stress more on the education part, last year, almost 2 years ago, I would have had 2 inmates taking their bachelor's degree at UWI, and they were sponsored by the Ministry of Education, also Ministry of National Security, and they are out of prison at this moment, and they're able to continue and get more educated so they can get a good job. And that's something that we'll continue doing and hopefully I had other prisoners say, Miss Hodge, can I get a music degree? Can I get a law degree? And I think when they come out, the life will be set up for them. And not only them, but even prisoners who maybe not as educated. How do we help them? Yes, so we look at the construction, the welding, the mechanic, because some of them, want to be more skillful, do skills basis stuff. And so we have different programs where they were going to AVEC and they were doing the welding and the mechanic there. We have the prison farm in Nevis. We have the farm here in St. Kitts where prisoners go and work on the farm. We have the construction where numbers of prisoners go out and work and build, multiple $1 million buildings. I would say that because if you see the work that they're doing, you would feel like it's someone on the outside who doing this work, but they are very skillful, and that's one of the things. And I said the main focus is to prevent recidivism.
Right, and the human rights considerations are important because sometimes we think that somebody going into prison may no longer be protected by human rights or is no longer seen as a full human being. And, excuse me, there could be nothing further from the truth. So I would ask Inspector Molyneux to tell me, what are some of the human rights considerations of inmates?
Good afternoon to everyone out in radio land under the hearing of my voice. What are some of the rights of prisoners once they're in prison? Human rights. Prisoners are entitled to 3 square meals, medication. Of course, they must be treated like human beings because that's someone, brother, sister, mother, father. Persons being sent to prison, that was the punishment. They're not to come to prison to be punished. They come there because they may have infringed on the law at some point in time, and the court would have put them to the prison for such time until the court sees fit. But once they come there, they have to be treated like human beings. They can't be treated any other way. This is something that human rights agencies will come down on any country for if you're treating your people, your prisoners, less than. You actually have something that is called the Mandela laws that give you a perfect guide as to how prisoners should be treated. You can't ill-treat prisoners of war, much less persons who would have just committed maybe traffic offense or something else. You have to treat people just like, because things can change. Things can change, and you may defend your family and you end up on the wrong side of the law because you would have defended your family. You might have ended up in prison for whatever reason, be it remanded or convicted. And you still have to be treated in a good way.
So part of the reform of prisoners has to do with how they are treated. Because how people are treated can either help them to become better or further damage them in terms of what they would have gone through. So the whole way in terms of how human rights are respected in the prison and prisoners are treated can help them in that process of rehabilitation. Virgil.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yes.
So that is why the focus has really shifted from punishment. Now, part of it is punishment. And of course, the biggest part is the deprivation of the basic right to liberty, to freedom. But the other, of course, aspects of human right prisoners do have, to food and all of that.
Food, medication.
Medication,
Yes.
and
Healthcare.
right, health care and all of that. Now, imprisonment is linked to poverty. In fact, sometimes when we look at prisons, the majority of persons that are in prisons come from poor families. Poverty in some way. And the very fact that you have taken a member of that family is now in prison, it deprives that family of maybe income that that family used to get. Because sometimes maybe that person was the main breadwinner in that family. And so therefore it pushes the family to look for a source of livelihood that was basically taken away from them. Now, the reintegration of the prisoner into the society is extremely important. Some who probably have gone into prison were not able to find employment because they never had a skill. They never had some opportunities for where they can be educated. So speak to me, Virgil, in terms of the importance of what is happening in the prison in relation to the prisoner being released back into the society.
Okay, that's right. Well, first of all, like I said, our main focus is to make sure that the inmate is rehabilitated. Because the prisoner can come to prison for 3 months, 6, and less time they have there, then less time for us to rehabilitate him, right? Or her. But so the longer they're there for is better for us. Matter of fact, when they come in, I normally do an assessment that one of the stuff that I have to do is ask them, what are you interested in while you're here? What are your skills? And then we try to place them in that program. But after they're released from prison with the NSA and Mr. Saunders, we would have had a program where we would have placed them under the step. We have a few guys who came out of prison and they were placed on that program where, of course, we get recommendation from officers who have dealt with them. We get recommendations from myself, of course, for them to say, well, hey, this was his or her behavior while in prison, because we're just not going to send anybody to work at anywhere knowing that they did not have a good record while being there, right? Because we still have to protect our institution. And so, that program would have gone on a little pause, because there weren't enough space or any space left. But we'll hopefully get back with that program, because I think it's very, very important when they're released from prison to have a job, whether they're going to do construction, mechanic, or go and teach. And I think that's something that we need to look at as a society on a whole.
Okay, so of course that is important, so that when the inmate is returned to the society, that they can be gainfully employed. Now, part of the problem that even though the prisoner has been rehabilitated, sometimes the society needs to be rehabilitated in terms of the stigma and the discrimination. And so there needs to be people in society who change that sort of attitude and mindset towards someone who has been to prison and who have been returned into the wider society.
Definitely.
Because if you do not feel welcome back, if people label you with all kinds of names, then it is very difficult for you to reintegrate. If you can't find a job, it is very difficult for you to reintegrate. And what would be the consequences of that? What would be the consequences, Mr. Mullin?
The consequences. Well, it could end up resulting in persons re-entering the institution. The institution, we offending the law. But for now, I think that a good the rehabilitation program have done well. Over the years, we have seen less reoffenders. There are still a small percentage of persons reoffending and coming back to prison. But if I could give you a number back in maybe as early as 2014, 2015, we would have had about 374 prisoners within the whole federation. And presently we have, I think it might be 170 something, 60 something, between St. Kitts and Nevis. So that in itself speaks volume. A lot of the persons who you would have seen going out and coming back in, they no longer come. Some of them you will see with meaningful jobs, not going over into massage field, but there were persons who would have come into the institution, would have learned the skill, would have helped out with some of the projects that may are going around. The Defense Force, the male barracks there, prisoners assisted in building that, and some of the guys would have learned the skill from there. And after they left prison, they end up doing their own thing. So, you know, those numbers gone on quite big. Yes.
That is excellent to have a reduction in the prison population, of course, for a number of reasons. Not only that the prisoners now have been rehabilitated and successfully reintegrated into the society, but of course it cuts down as well on the resources in terms that the state has to provide towards the prison upkeep.
Yes, and I would also say we have guys who were in prison who went to the farm. They're gone out now and doing farming and gives back to the prison. They will call and say, look here, we have X amount of bags, potato, pumpkins, and give back to the prison. So it shows that, you know, something have been done right.
Right, so they are civic-minded, they are giving back to an institution that they just didn't see as, you know, oh, why were we here? But at least the institution gave us something.
Right.
Institution helped us to grow.
Right.
And so therefore we can contribute back to the institution that basically helped us.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Sergeant Rochester, we're talking about rehabilitation. But of course, in a prison, there are concerns about security as well. And what is being done to ensure that there is security at the prison? And security at the prison, what I mean, is that it benefits everybody at the prison. Not just the inmate, but those who work at the prison as well. You have to have a security system in place that is going to ensure the safety and security of those within the working in the prison and the inmates in the prison. What are some of the security reforms that have taken place at the prison to ensure this safety and security?
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Sergeant Rochester at HM Prison. One of the things we do in there, some of the things we do, one, surveillance with the cameras. We must have cameras out there to even play back on the, after we tape them today, we play back on the following day, or days after, to see what happened, where we were, where we at now, where we could go forward for another day. in the future. We place officers after they've been trained in different departments. For example, we have line officers who deal with the daily routine of the prisoners, who sometimes come back and bring information to the officers and say, so, we identify two people up there in a gang, one from the KMS, one from the Tech Life, and they had a little confusion today. And then we go back to the drawing board and we try to investigate further and separate them. I must segregate them for security purposes, which is very important. Also, we post officers in places that they must stay at all times except they're being relieved. We also send officers on training abroad. Barbados, Virginia, West Virginia, Colorado, etc. And when they come back, they enhance what they learn to us. We hold meetings and we go about it and we have training. We go and training like CNR, control and restrain. We also do cell extraction, etc. But the main thing we are trying to identify the different gangs and how to go about separating them for the benefit of everybody, themselves, the prison system, and the society in the whole federation.
Okay. What are some of the security challenges that you have at the prison?
Well, inside here we filled with challenges. Some people, as an inmate, might tell yourself, boy, if I'm your tongue, I can't trust the people in McNice, so I'm going to hold a shank. A shank we call, a shank design described as a piece of wire, a knife, a toothbrush that is pointed, a piece of stick, anything that is illegal, anything could be deemed as a threat or as a weapon to someone else's well-being or the institution, we deem it as a shank. Now, they got lighters, etc. You could burn down the place with it, you could start a fire also. But the shank is the main thing. So we use a lot of information, get the information and we say, look, go back to the drawing board, so I gathered this today, what do you think we should do? We use mechanical restraint also for the people who are like, I must say, mentally challenged people, deranged people. People you feel like, well, the people, the Dr. Williams and Miss Sanchez will come and see and give them medication. No, the challenge with that is those people on the streets, nobody tend to really study them there. So when they smoke up the coke or they get the medication and they come prison, it becomes a very, very major challenge for us. They try to fight us as officers. And we got to restrain them to take the medication. And this is very, very challenging. You know, because we still got to remember that they are human beings and we can't deal with them too aggressively, to injure them, to hurt them out, nothing. So it poses a major challenge. So that is why I keep saying, as we say, training must be ongoing. Training must be ongoing to deal with situations like that. And in that way, security will come to the lowest level.
Yes, I remember a few years ago, the public became aware of contraband and other lighters, even knives and things like that, entering into the prison. And the question, of course, surfaced in terms of prison security. And you do not want someone going into prison, and yet the environment is not a safe and secure one, both for the prisoner and those who work in the prison. Because as you highlighted, you have certain temperaments within the prison in terms of prisoners, and you may even have some people who may have some mental issues that can create harm in the prison. What is being done in terms of how do you eliminate illegal things getting into the prison. Contraband, and how do you, how, because the relationship between, even though people are in prison, they still have a relationship with the outside world, in the sense that people come and visit. What, Mr. Molyneux, would you advise the population, the public, in terms of the relationship that they should have with prisoners? What are the do's and the don'ts? And what is being done to prevent illegal materials entering into the prison?
Well, Mr. Williams, what I would encourage the general public to do for that small minority of persons who would try to aid and abet prisoners in getting stuff to cease and desist. We have a challenge where our location, it is in the heart of Bastille, and persons will take the chance to go up Hart Street and throw things over the fence. We would have had to take on some measures to try and get that stopped. We have slowed it down. I'm not sure that we could eradicate it completely, but I know we can slow it down. But the last part of it is for the small part of the population who would be involved in those type of acts to cease and desist from that. Yes.
Mr. Rochester, Sergeant.
Well, I forgot a major point I want to make. As somebody comes to prison, we have a processing team which asks them about their lifestyle, what civil they come for, and if they are gang related. And once you are gang related, we pass the information down up to the relevant authorities, back down to the basic grade officers, and we work from there. We seclude you from the people who might be a threat to you. Also, I'm appealing to the general public to understand that anywhere a prisoner goes or transferred to, the prison extended to there. For example, at the hospital, we got major challenges is there. We take them for medical attention at the dental lab and everything, at the eye clinic, the hospital, etc., the health centers. We got problem with the people because they feel, oh, by the man outside, in the jail, so you could do what you want. No. I am appealing to you all to understand anybody prisoner moved to, the prison extended to there. And you must also understand we have the powers of arrest, the powers of the police. I think it's Constitution chapter 25, I think it's verse A, B, or C, speaks about all the security forces, has the authority, the privilege, and the protection of the police. So we could arrest, but we don't really go into that because I say it might be like a kind of thing like you say, boy, if I arrest a man today, you could use so many court and get off. But please, and also you're asking the general public, when you come to the prison, you can get all the information, yes, but treat it at that and leave it at there. One of the other challenges, Mr. William, one of the challenges we have inside the prison, the inmates will go to work on a daily basis. You can't take a thing out of a man's brain as if you write it on a paper. If I tell you, boy, man, you're my friend, I lock up in cell 16. Tell Peter, send some weed to me, give Mary. Man, you're going to be in the brain. So we could detect that. You understand? So them are the challenges. And I'm appealing also to the general public to understand that we face challenges, and if the prison is unstable, the outer society becomes unstable. If the outer society is unstable, the prison becomes unstable. You know, if fights are out there because the gang in the prison, out there, gang will be in the prison fighting. So we got to understand that let us just live lovingly and live together. You understand? Yeah, you got to do that.
Now, in terms of you have, of course, the male population at the prison, and you have the female population at the prison. Are there any, do you notice any differences between the male population and the female population? Mr. Molyneux.
Here we would have maybe 160 males. Presently, we have only 3 or 4 females. So women hardly come to prison, but men mostly do. Yes. But I would also appeal to the public, you know, to come on board to help us with programs. You know, resources may be low and things right now, but there's a skill set that persons will have out there. They can come and help these young men to go back out into society and become meaningful citizens of society. Skill set, you know, tailoring, carpentry, upholstery, come in and help. One of the things I know we definitely need in the prison is more counselors to help the prisoners with their mental health. Some may say I'm psychologists instead of counselors, but all of them in the same field, I would want to believe. You know, we have one person right now, and I think she's overworked. I think she needs help, and this is why I think we need to help the prisoners, because in dealing with prisoners every day, prisoners not going to get up feeling the same. You understand what I'm saying? We need persons to help, you know, get them right. Of course, we usually have the church come in and bring the good word, but from COVID, we were unable to accommodate because of the COVID. But going forward, we're looking for persons to come and help, assist us. You know, prison is not just about lock and key. It's about rehabilitating people to come back into society, because after a person complete 5 or 10 years imprisonment, he or she have to come back into our society. He or she may be my neighbor, your neighbor. We don't want to be watching people with a cock eye all the time, you know, and we need to stop the discriminating and saying, you went to prison, or persons sometimes make mistakes and they deserve a second chance, sometimes a third chance or more. But we have to be a forgiving people, but also we also have to have programs to get these people back into society and be meaningful, contribute meaningfully to the society.
Right. Apart from the education program that you have at the prison that deals with CXC subjects and you know, and so on, do you have those programs that teach prisoners soft skills? Do they learn, for example, conflict resolution? Do they learn anger management? All of those things that are so important, because some people land up in prison because, one, they do not know how to resolve conflict. They have difficulty in managing their anger. And anger, even though it is not a bad emotion, you know, it's how it is used, can lead you to get in fights and problems. So how can they be assisted in their personal development? Things that teach, for example, good self-esteem. You know, teach respect for others, respect for self.
Well, I attest to several years ago we had several programs coming to the prison. One was from the Catholic Church that taught about anger management, and we had a next program, I think it was aided by the USAID, Agana. In my opinion, they were successful. We have not seen any program message like that recently. So,
elaborate a bit. It's so funny because just before I came here, Pastor Lincoln Connell called me and he asked if he can come back, which he came to the prison 2 weeks ago, Sunday, and he did an outreach program where he gave them some toiletries, a goodie bag, and they were very appreciative of that. And he spoke with them for like an hour, along with 3 other members of his church, that's Antioch Baptist Church. And he called me, like I said, just before I came here, he asked if he can come once a month and have a little word with them, because I guess he saw something where he can make a difference in these gentlemen and ladies, because the female were able to join us as well. And so I told him definitely, and that's just one ministry. As Mr. Molyneux said, we would have had some programs before. I know we had the drug program just before the COVID, where they would have gotten certificates after a couple of weeks of that program with Dr. Jacobs, Miss Jacobs, and some others. We have Ministry of the Gender Affairs. I would have spoke to Miss Chanel a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to start getting the programs for the females, because we speak about these programs, a lot of them are really offered for the male because there's so many of them. And so we're going to have her come in and she talked about doing gardening and doing sewing for the 4, or it might be 3 at that when she comes in June, July, to start the program with the females as well. So persons are making plans to come in, and they have reached out to myself and the deputy commissioner, about bringing programs back in the prison now that COVID would have sort of passed us, and they're able to come back in. But so definitely we'll get those programs up and running again.
Yes, and it's important because even though you spoke about education, of course, education brings about change in people, or it should bring about change. It should help with a person's human development. But at the very same time, there are some specific human problems that people have. Not being able to deal with conflict, to manage their anger. They may have problems with drug addiction. They may have problems that they would have suffered abuse. And so therefore, they need help with their person in terms of that rehabilitation process. Mm-hmm.
That is one thing that we should get Dr. Williams should be the person heading that spearheading that department with the psychological workers them. Because some of them a man married and he come to jail because he cheat and he backs off his wife because he got the keeper, and he wanted in marital psychology training and everything. And he now get it, so he gonna go on the stupidness again when he go out. We need a forensic psychologist. We need different psychologists. The lady is very good there, but she's just a general psychologist, so we don't get much out of her. And it's very, very hectic on her. 182 male prisoners, 22 in Nevis, 116 St. Kitts, male-dominated prison. Can't get nothing out of that. Prisoners looking forward even for a visit with their loved ones, the child, the mother, the wife, the woman, somebody. But you can't do it every day. She does it at Fridays, really. And Friday is like 1 hour per person. So you're talking from 9 o'clock to less than like 4, with the hour lunch in between. You see what you're getting at, Mr. Williams? So he's defeating the purpose till he's not making an effort. Now, one the point I wanted to make, I'm going to talk again. Because we all talking, yes, that they were forward. But the people know. We were there. The prison was there from day one. Care, custody, and control. That then meant, like, as a man come jail, 6 months, that would standard time at long time, you lock him up. I met people tell me, boy, you're a prison officer, you're a warden. I said, well, you can't be warden, you lock up people. Now, we had days when we used to just go, we moved from there, because one time we had a fishing boat. Prisoners used to go fishing. Rotary Club gave them a boat, so they used to go fish. But after that, as time evolved, we had to move from that because I'm having to take a boat and kill the officer and run go away. You see what's going on? I bring in some drugs, you see, so we got to get from that. Then he had the cemetery also with that. He had the jail cart. The officer running down the road and the prisoner like you. He pull the card for 6 of them. You go run. From cemetery to down by the prison with wood to shop and a little furnace. We get away from the stage now. We move on. They speak about the Mandela law. They still teach me again. The 3 C's, care, custody, and control, but then they turn it to conversion to make you better people after being discharged. Back into society, reintegration into society, you want to become better persons. So they try to teach you a kind of thing like, you were there, get from that. But we can't be on that now. We're looking now to rehabilitation, educational classes, the band. I mean, up to 2 days ago, Sister Hodge was with me, my PO, and Mr. Troy Biff Mills came there with a gentleman to start some conga kind of drumming and some steel pan playing. And those are good things. And I even asked him, Mr. Mills, after the prisoner, the inmate, sorry, I get to be a prisoner, that don't go on to, it's mad on time. After they finish, 3 months, 6 months, 2 weeks, a day, 2 days, would they be awarded a certificate? It goes a long way. It's a mental thing for a man to get a certificate. And then going to get other people and go, buy my friend get a certificate. Buy me smarter and me going to. So we got to look into that and get people involved, get people on board. You know? And that's one of the main challenge we got. People see the prison. I'm going in Colorado all the time. I tell a friend, girl, I go in Colorado. Who do I lock up people? I said, no. I'm going to do some training, extensive training, tactical training, force their leadership skills, training. As a supervisor, you must go through that. So the prison does ongoing training, but because of the COVID, they shut them down. I want to be going to Virginia next couple of days with Mr. Molyneux, but he shut me down, so I love him still.
Yes,
it's true.
Well, just to add on the programs that I was talking about earlier, last week I had a meeting with Ministry of Culture as well, and the director of Culture, Troy Biff, and his team. They are going to start a program with steel pan and drums, the conga drums, with the inmates, hopefully by May, June. And so, like I mentioned before, persons are coming on board and realizing that, you know, the rehabilitating is not going to just be Virgil Hodge alone or Mr. James or Mr. Harris alone and other officers, but they have to come on board and help as well. So I'm really grateful for that.
Right. I know that there are alternatives to people going to prison. And people even reach into the courthouse. And I know a lot of work has been done. I know the Attorney General has been very passionate about this in terms of mediation, alternative sentencing, and all those things that can have a very positive impact on the prison population that we have. So therefore you don't have as many people going into prison and so on because, you know, the alternative sentencing, whether they do community work, and of course things don't have to reach to the point where people are sentenced to go to prison because you have people that mediate and things like that and try to get to the bottom of the conflict so that people can, you know, prevent all of that. So we don't want because part of the problem is that the prison is at the moment overcrowded. Isn't that so, Mr. Molyneux?
Somewhat.
It's not as crowded as it used to be.
As it used to be, I think HMP, Keon Street has served its time. Because even going back to rehabilitation again, the programs we want to do, we can't do because of space. You know, you would have visited and you would have seen how is it is there? We had to take the classroom, the first classroom we had, classroom and church, and turn it into a cell for over the years. the amount of prisoners we used to get. But yeah, we do need a new facility, and I think a lot more would be able to be done. I have to commend Ms. Hodge for everything that she's putting out there, going out and speaking to persons and trying to get programs on board with the little space that we have. There are also some prisoners who assist with the classes. You know, you have to commend them also because they don't have to do it, but a lot of them find joy in teaching. They go out and they teach civilians. This was put on pause because of the COVID also. They used to be at the Maurice Hillier where afternoon classes used to be run. English, social, sociology, a wide variety of subjects, right. So, you know, I think they have been doing a good job with the rehabilitation program, and with better facilities in time to come, we would see even more, and we would probably have a more reduction in persons reoffending and coming back to prison. Yeah. And if I may say, one of the things we have to ask the general public also is, you know, we speak about the prisoners getting programs, but the officers also need programs too. If anybody from CFB UE is listening, I would ask, you know, you sponsor some conflict resolution courses for the officers, because every day, as I tell you, person's not going to wake up feeling the same. And officers being in the position that they are in would be able to help settle things before it expands. You know.
And you mentioned a very good point, Miss Inspector Molyneux, because of course you are involved in prison management. Okay, all of you to some degree are involved in prison management. And it is important that you get some sort of a training. Ongoing training, because, and that would help you in terms of your management, because each prisoner is different, and each prisoner has different needs. And so therefore, you need to know the prisoner that you are dealing with, to know how to approach that prisoner, how to help that prisoner, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to develop some form of a trust, right? So it is not an situation where they see you being there simply that you're trying to shove things down their throat, that you're just there all the time to criticize them or to point out when they do something that is wrong. You want to develop this relationship with the prisoners to the point that there is deep respect. And that will even help them, I think, in their behavior in the prison. Because I am sure that you have some system in place in the prison for good behavior. Prisoners who, you know, some incentive that when they behave well, that there is some reward. And when they do not behave well, there is some form of punishment that, you know, you have not behaved well and you're really called to be better. Because if you go there and you're not behaving well, you're not following the rules of the prison, because I'm sure there are rules in the prison. And if you're not following the rules in the prison, then we see what the problem is. If you have to be discharged from the prison, you have a problem with following rules, obeying laws. So what system is in place in the prison to ensure that these things are the good behavior, the bad behavior, the reward system, the punishment system, all of that to help with the prisoners?
Well, there are rights and there are privileges. Privileges can be taken away, and we have a system where if you infringe on the law, you can lose remission days. You lose in remission days, the earliest date of release that you possibly can go home to would be extended by 7, 14, or 21 days. It goes on in increments of 7. So that is one way you deal with persons who would infringe on the rules and regulation. Sometimes it's just a conversation. There were times, well, I could give this instance. One, this gentleman was behaving rather bad. And I stood there and I looked at him and I was thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to do with him. I'm going to punish him this way. And somebody next to me just said, just have a conversation with him. Something might be bothering him. Had the conversation with him. He apologized. Told me, man, this is the reason I was frustrated. And as I say, sometimes it's just a conversation. Sometimes you may say, and you hear me say this more than once, everybody don't wake up feeling the same. You might, you're in prison, one of your friends come in and tell you, hey, I see your girlfriend out there with so and so. Frustrating. You would have left a house outside and you're wondering how your family outside getting through with the payments of the mortgage, your car. So all these things could be frustrating, and this is one of the reasons I asked for, you know what I mean, if the colleges, universities are listening, help us with conflict management courses, because sometimes you just have to listen to the guys. The guys would wake up not feeling right. It can't always be the heavy hammer. Sometimes it's just a listening ear.
Yes. Right. And that has to do with the prison management and you understanding, the needs that the prisoner have, the kinds of problems that they may be going through, the frustrations, the emotional turmoil that may be taking place inside, because remember, it's a loss. They're going through loss as well. And when you go through any sort of a loss, you go through a sort of a grieving process. There's a grieving process because there's something that you have lost. That is, the biggest thing is that of your freedom and your liberty. But you've also lost time that you could spend with your family, time that you can spend with your friends. You lost time that you can go out and socialize at the strip and all of that sort of a thing. So it is not very easy coming from one environment, being placed in another, into the prison environment. You have to make certain adjustments. Some may adjust easier than others, I would imagine. But definitely you're going through a grieving process. Sometimes you can't believe, and the grieving process, I believe, can even help you come to the fact, but I don't want to come back inside here, Because, I really can't deal with this alienation, this separation from my family and my friends and so on. And that is why it is so important, what I began by saying in terms of the rehabilitation, They don't have cell phones that they can use. They can't go on the internet as they would like, and all that sort of a thing. It's
challenges, Mr. William. Serious challenges. Even the people up in the class, as the teachers, we give them a laptop up there, a computer. We put the internet on it for them to do their studies for school. But they break it somehow and go in and go on the internet. So when you catch them, you lock them up for 2 weeks, but you can't deprive them of being educated. So you still give them back a chance when you're done. You see what's going on? You punish them for a period of time, but they must do the subjects. If a man pays money to do something, he must reap the benefits of it,
Right, and so therefore we're talking about people doing subjects, having to do research And the internet is an important part of doing research, but at the very same time, in a prison environment, it can become something else. It depends on how it is being used, because it can be used, of course, to do your research, but of course it can be used to have all kind of influence with the outer world as well. And the outer world as well, having influence in terms of what is happening inside the prison. So therefore, prisoners learning all kinds of things and getting smart. When I say smart, you know what type of smart I mean. So how do you deal with that? Because my visit to the prison and looking around, I was very impressed in terms of what I saw there. The bakery, you have prisoners that are, involved in baking, supplying bread for themselves, being self-sufficient. I also saw the tailor shop, where prisoners, are so skilled in tailoring, and people from outside as well who wants to get anything tailored, they can speak to the prison management, and that can be done in the prison. I also met an extraordinary prisoner that was there who engaged me in a conversation, and he has 16 subjects. He also has a Cape Associate degree, and he wants to go further. He has the desire to do a bachelor's degree. But yet he says that there are certain challenges. They do not have enough computers. They would like more computers where they can, do more work. I suppose that will have to be carefully managed. It has to be carefully managed. But I can understand his point. Yes?
Well, it's just recently we actually gave them access to the internet because we realized it was a challenge. Yes, like I mentioned earlier, I had 2 guys in prison who were taking their bachelor's in prison at the time, and so they needed the internet to do their online classes. And with the conversation with the commissioner and deputy, we decided, okay, those guys are out now. Let's give the other teachers, like Mr. Molly mentioned, there are inmates who are teachers as well in the prison, who are teaching prisoners as well as civilians. Let's give them a chance to go on the internet and research their work. We have the CXC examination coming up in May, and I have couple of prisoners, at least 7 prisoners who are registered for classes, for exams to take in May. And so which means more prisoners now going to get more subjects. And so we need to be up to the time with technology. Yes, they need to be properly supervised by the officers, but do we hold them back because we feel they are going to break the law, or do we monitor them more so they don't have to break the law? Because they are humans, we are humans. I can't say if I were the other want to try to sneak a little YouTube or Facebook to see if I could contact my son, that I wouldn't do it. But it's about self-control and knowing what you want, and it can go against that inmate in the future when it's time to come out. Because we can say, oh, remember when you broke the law and you went on the internet to do stuff that you shouldn't have done. And so I don't think they want that to go on their record. So it's about self-control and knowing what they want and following the rules and doing it right.
Okay. We have to go to the phone lines and to hear what people want to ask, any suggestion that they want to make. The numbers are 466-2666, 466-2666, 662-8674, 662-8674, 767-4765, and 1-239-645-4500. That is 1-239-645-4500. We await your calls. Right, so there are prisoners who want to be better. They have a deep desire to learn, just from the tour that I had. They have a deep desire to learn, and they want to be better people. The majority of them that I see. I think that a number of them recognize that they have offended the law, and they really want to change. But sometimes, as we mentioned, change is not easy, and we have to help people to change and create that environment in which they can change. Because sometimes people do not change because of the environment in which they are. And so therefore, that when they come out into the society and are placed back into certain environments, that they will help to change the environment instead of the environment changing them. Do you see my point? Because some of them are going back into the very same environments. If they were in gangs, and they went to prison and they learned something, when they come out, they may have a pull to go back into the same gang. But how do you resist that?
With the programs we would implement in the prison, and this is what you heard me say, we need more psychologists and staff. Because when a person leaves prison, they go out to hear ex-prisoner, jailbird. This person who would have been in a gang might tell themselves, "Bah, the only place I feel in love is within the gang." So they're going to gravitate back to the gang. So we need programs, and we need the society to be a lot more accepting and forgiving when a person has already paid his or her dues to the state for the infringing the law. Forgive.
And that is why even there are a number of things that complement what you're doing in the prison. So we don't have to wait until a person gets into prison to start the rehabilitation. We have to be able, as a society, to recognize when something is wrong, when someone needs help, before they can get to the stage of breaking the law, going to court, and reaching into the prison. And that is why I think programs such as the Explorers, youth clubs, right now they said, what's the name of that program? The Peace Initiative? The Peace Initiative, of course, is a program which I think has some sort of a rehabilitative aspect to it. To me, that is the most important part of that program. The most important part of that program is not, to me, the business component or the commercial one of getting money. There has to be a change in people's hearts and people's minds in order really to say that that program is effective.
A program where we have inmates going out, along with Miss Hodge, speaking to high school students who the school may be deemed to be heading down that wrong path, and primary schools. Well, of course, COVID would have put it on break. But from the prison end, we are trying, but we need help. We need help, so we appealing to the general public again to come on board in whatever way you can to help out. Yeah, and you forgot, you said the Explorer Corps, but you forgot the Cadet Corps.
The Cadet Corps and any sort of a youth group, church, Sunday schools, and youth groups and community youth groups and all of those things that help with the socialization of people
Yes.
to be really good citizens.
Yes. Right.
Citizens contributing to society in a positive way. I mean, we will always have crime among us. We will always have crime, but at the very same time, what we are looking at in terms of the reduction of crime, we want to reduce the prison population. You said it has been reduced over time, and that is a good thing that it has been reduced. Maybe partly too because we have certain programs that are happening, the Peace Program and the Explorers Youth Group and so on. These, of course, will continue to help to reduce the prison population. And so, therefore, resources that the state would have to use to maintain a prison, those resources can be used elsewhere in educational programs.
I'm happy Mr. Manya brought that up just now, because I actually got word from Ministry of Education CEO Francis Morris to start the programs in the school. We go back into the schools by May and start that program. So we're gonna finish the school that we didn't cover, which were Keon High and Primary, and then we're gonna start over from the other schools.
Okay, good. We have a caller online. Working for... We seem to have lost that caller. Okay. What is the daily routine like for a prisoner?
Rochester.
What is the daily routine like for a prisoner? What do they do when they get up in the morning to when they go to bed at night? Someone is on the line. Working for you, good afternoon.
Being cut off.
Working for you. Right. Yes. What's the daily routine of the prisoner?
In the morning at 5 o'clock, turn on the lights. After the lights turn on, they've been aware that we're going to come back by 6 o'clock, or 10 to 6. We get them out, the convicts, put on the full uniform, they come out. We have a roll call, a general roll call, to make sure everybody who we locked up last night is in there and nobody escaped. Then we go into a morning devotion, one song, Our Father pray the grace of God and the scripture. We blow them out in the yard in orderly manner to go and have a shower who want to shower. They just line up. We will inspect them to see who want a haircut and a shave, because convicted prisoners must shave and cut if they're not a rasta. You understand? So we does that. After 10, 15, 20 minutes, everybody come up, we turn them and blow them back inside. First we ask, any complaint? Anybody want to see the deputy commissioner? Anybody want to see the commissioner, the chief officer? We take notes. Anybody feeling sick, we take notes. After that, we blow them back inside, and then we bring out the remand. We don't do it together because it could create a problem down the road. So we bring out the remands, we do the same procedure. The roll call, the morning devotion, we blow them out. Then we put them back inside. After that, we go into the breakfast ration. After the breakfast ration, we lock back up everybody. We take out the convicts for a parade, prisoners parade. We detail who's supposed to go walk. After that, we lock up the remainders. Then we get the gangs out the yard by maybe 8 o'clock the latest. Then we start recreation. The rules say exercise should be 30 minutes in the morning and 30 in the afternoon. But what we does now, because sometimes the challenge for the staff, we do everybody 1 hour.
Stick a pin there, Rochester. Walking for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Leroy.
Good afternoon, sir.
And US colleague there at the table.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here
Good
listening as
afternoon.
usual. And I like some of the things that they have, the program they have there for the inmates, eh? And I tell you, the rehabilitation system, I love that. But I can pick out now. When Mr. A gonna pre-plan, premeditated, draw a blueprint plan, and go and attack Mr. B, kill Mr. B, and then hide Mr. B, bury Mr. B. That criminal, to me, that criminal don't need no second chance. Because the victim who that criminal killed, he needed a first chance too. So he premeditated, you know. He tend to say it's a fight. And one hit, one hard back, and he couldn't take it, and he take it serious and go dead. Plan to kill the man where he live, and do everything and hide him. That is the problem. No, not for he. He's supposed to get what the Bible say. You kill a man innocently, murder a man, you should be murdered too. But other than that, people go in there for child support and other things like drugs and all this kind of fight and all that. I agree with that. Those guys there could be rehabilitated, but not the hardcore criminal murder, like I said, who pre-planned the criminal act. Look what happened last week with Arthur. I like that person there, them people who kill Arthur. They don't deserve no second chance. Bust them off right away. The Bible says so. Thank you very much.
Your call. How would you address that, Inspector Molyneux?
Well, our job is not to judge. As prison officers, we do not go out and bring anyone to the prison. I understand the gentleman would have his feelings and he has the right to that. But we look at persons in a different way. When you come to the prison, we don't judge you for what you would have done. The court already did that. So that is how I would answer that.
Yes.
I know your voice well, I know him. I'll let you tell the caller. The police does investigations upon any offense, any information they get on the offense. They do the arrest, they take them to the court, they go to the magistrate court. If the evidence is enough to go to the high court, they got a preliminary inquiry. They be called a PI. And the judge and jury decide the fate of that person. The warrant in the prison always mark, and to you, the superintendent, I command you to hold this person in captivity for such time. He ain't say lock them up to hold them there. I give you orders to hold them. We are the servants of the court, not the justice system of the court.
Yeah, there are some people who get life imprisonment. Some people get 2 life imprisonments and so on, which means that they won't be eligible to come back into the society for very heinous crimes that they have committed. But at the very same time, for the lifetime that they are in prison, we cannot say that they cannot be rehabilitated. Even though they are serving life, they can still be rehabilitated. So at the end of the day, that they serve their time in prison, but at the end of the day, they have changed and become better persons. So that, of course, when they go to their maker, they are better people. And so on. So, as you correctly said, sometimes we judge and so on. But I want to, out of what he said, to come to another point, because he spoke about some persons who are in prison for maybe petty offenses and so on, and then some of them are there for very, very serious capital crimes that they have committed. So what sort of a classification do you have at the prison in terms of prisoners? Because, I mean, you know, how do you group prisoners? Because you don't put everybody there in the same category. And that goes back to how you treat certain persons as well. We can give you an indication, based on the crime, what sort of a need that that person may have. Inspector Molyneux. And the classification as well, I think, will have to do with the prison security as well. That's also an aspect of prison security.
Right. Well, our classifications are simple. Our classifications would be a young offender, someone who is under the age of 21, ordinary, a person who have been to prison several times and who is over the age of 21, and star. The star would be someone who has offended for the first time and is also over the age of 21. To go out and say that we have a system where you speak about this person being a high risk or that, it is not under our classification. But the officers within their reports, they would let the commissioner of corrections know, well, this person is giving this problem, we need to pay more attention to him, try and get whatever programs and so forth. But we have a simple classification system within Home Assist Prison.
Okay. Right. So you have persons there who are on remand. Okay. Go ahead, Rochester.
Well, we got different classifications. We have a waiting court, you call them an AC prisoner. They come from the magistrate court. They're being apprehended, gone to the court, charged, gone to the court, they plead not guilty, they remand them to the prison. Now they are waiting the court, the magistrate court, so we only hold them for 7 days. Before 7 days, the magistrate want them, she'll send a document, say, warrant before expiration of Peter Paul to come to the court for 9 o'clock, we got to let him go. After we pass the stage, and then he becomes a waiting trial, because after the PI, based on the evidence to go upstairs, he becomes a waiting trial. Trial is the High Court. Now that warrant supersedes the awaiting court warrant. We go on further, we have convicted in the magistrate court. Most of them sentences will be like misdemeanor sentences. Carry up to a minimum, maybe like 2 years the most. So misdemeanor is 6 months. They say the police were going to act 6 months. Now after that you have the circuit court, what we call the High Court. Some old people call it the Grand Courts. That's the court give up to like life in prison. But the life in prison warrant sometimes specifies 25 years to life. That means after 25 years, you could be revisited and go back to the court. So Rule 35 of the rule speaks about long sentence prisoner, which says clearly, every 4 years and beyond, you must give a report. The person helped when they came to prison, while they're in prison, the industry, etc., to add to the case. You understand? For when you touch Rule 40, which I wouldn't really want to touch now. That is lawyer work. Then we go up now, we have the persons who appeal. You could appeal in the magistrate court. Anything under 9 months, you could be bailed. In the High Court, once you over 9 months, you can't get no bail, but you could be appellant prisoner, but at the same time, your time is running. You see what's going on? Your time running. Then you go down now, you have the awaiting sentence before you go to you could go to the High Court. And the judge decide, well, by the case done, I want a psychiatric report from a psychologist, I want a statement from the social workers, and then after them come in, you get a copy and the sentence you based on that, based on the mitigating and the aggravating factors. Sentence on that. Then you go down further, you got the court order. When I went to prison first to work in 92, you had the court order, it was Queen's pleasure, and on behalf of the Queen, Like you just used to live in jail because you do mental people, you go prison, you got mental disorder, they're done with you. You live a lifespan in jail. Except somebody filed for you 20 years after, and anything you do, it fall on them. So nobody used to want to do. They change it to the Governor General pleasure. Same procedures, but now we change to the court order. I know people doing court order with the same Governor General Queen's pleasure thing, and they're doing 25 years. They can't go beyond 25 years because they want to specify from the court. Every 4 years, bring him, let me see him, give me a report on him, but he cannot go beyond 25 years. But it's a court order. You see the technicality? Sorry, you're not. See the technicality? So, it's different things, but we got to understand that we only take the instructions from the court. We don't sentence nobody. The mercy comes from the court, we just abide with what the court say. Our job is to just execute the court orders. Carla. Nice.
Right. You mentioned the psychological report and the social inquiry report for the sentencing of, yes. Is that report, are those reports shared with the prison management? The reason I'm asking that is that those reports are important to know about the prisoner for his rehabilitation purposes. So that, of course, it can cut down on the rate of recidivism. So you will know exactly what to address, the state of the prisoner's mind, and what sort of social conditions that may have contributed to his committing the crime.
We have to be careful of what we share. You know, as the person who deals with assessment when an inmate comes in as a remand, the document that I do with the prisoners is personal, and it covers a lot of the psychological aspect of their minds and their backgrounds and their health and their family history, and that's something that is personal. So with the counselor, I think that's what you want to know. Can she share certain information with the management? Personally, based on what it is, I don't think that is something that we should practice, because you go to a counselor, you expect it to be private. Yes. You expect your business to stay there and not to even tell the commissioner or the deputy.
Right.
So
there's the psychologist, clientele, relationship and professionalism.
Correct.
And all of that. That
yes.
They really cannot share that report.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The sentence from the court with the information from the psychiatric
That is
people.
correct.
The processing department goes to the court for sentencing. They represent the prison in the court. The police have somebody walk along with them in the court. So you have a prison representative and a police representative. So when they come from the court now, the person who got the court will say, Mr. This is what happened. Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Deputy, this is what they say, and wherever they does that. But the other part now, as Mr. just saying, the PO, we cannot give confidential stuff out because I had to go to council in a time and me tell Miss Brumble, you know, me not talk to you because you're not getting about my business, you know. She said, well, just ain't going to do it, so I don't talk to you then. You see, because it's my personal thing, that between me and she. So the court going to bring the thing and we're going to deal with it from that aspect.
Right, that's what I meant.
The processing, they're going to deal with it.
Yeah.
He get 5 years and the judge said this, and eventually after they're done, we don't got a digest. Then they bring up the information and you could get it. If the appeal make it even worse, because when they sentence, they're going to read out everything, you know, in detail. And you will get the idea so you come and share.
Okay. Basically, we are out of time. I think we covered a lot of areas. We covered prison rehabilitation, reform. We covered the security at the prison. We looked at recidivism. We looked at the classification of prisoners. We looked at training, of course, for prison officers. You know, some of the programs that are at the prison that are important to helping prisoners to rehabilitate and so on. Now, what is a prison term before we go? What is a prison term? Yes.
Well,
what is 1 year?
A year in prison. Now, the prison divides a sentence by 3. To find a total, you must divide by 3. So 12 months, you divide it by 3. 3 to 4 goes 12. You get 4 months off remission, so you spend 8 months. But the 4 months now could be added back on based on your behavior, infringing on the rules of the prison, bringing in contraband into the prison, disrespecting the officer. You understand? So that way the 4 months go to come back. In a parole system, with a system
so
to...
prison year is 8 months?
8 months.
Mm-hmm.
8 months.
8 months.
8 months. Unlike when some people were convicted and was sentenced to death, and they commuted the sentence to Governor General, they were doing a prison year as a calendar year. 35 years to life, calendar years. 365 and a quarter, 366. Yeah, that's what the whole thing is. So.
Inspector Molyneux, what are some of the things that are accepted, just before we go, at the prison from the public for prisoners? What are some of the things accepted?
Well, mostly money that will go on the account, because the prisoner have what we call a talk shop or the commissary. We would buy the snacks, the extra toiletries, if you want to. If the prisoner is issuing a particular type of soap and you don't like that, and we have it in the shop, you could purchase it there. We had to get the commissary up and running, I think it was back in 2006, because of challenges we were facing with persons who were bringing stuff in packages that they were bringing for their loved ones. So the commissary started as a result of that in HMP. But mostly it is money that we accept for persons to purchase whatever from the shop. When it comes to clothing, we do accept clothing, but a limited amount. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to thank all 3 of you for coming today and to educating the public in terms of the prison system. Of course, I began by saying that once ago people looked at the prison as that of punishment. But today, prison is more reform than anything else, and rehabilitation. Because, of course, inmates have to reintegrate into the society. And we want to cut down on them returning to prison, what we call recidivism. So the role of the prison system is predominantly that of rehabilitation. So I want to thank all 3 of you. I want to thank, of course, Mr. Eric Rochester, the prison sergeant at HMP. I want to thank Inspector Virgil Hodge, who has responsibility for rehabilitation at Her Majesty's Prison, and Inspector Charles Molyneux, who is the principal officer, the shift leader at Her Majesty's Prison. Thank you to all 3 of you for being here, and I hope that you will come again and to share with us some of the good work that you are doing at Her Majesty's Prison for our inmates. Thank you very much. You have been listening to another edition of Working for You. Thank you very much for joining us for our program today. Of course, your company is appreciated from week to week. Next week, we will be back with another Working for You program. Until then, take care. Oh, and one thing I wanted to mention, the condolences to the family and to the entire country, of course, on the passing of His Excellency Ambassador Vance Amory, the former Premier of Nevis. Of course, he has been on this program before a few times, and he has always been very gracious in terms of what he shared, and he has been an excellent individual in my communication and relationship with him. Thank you very much. See you next week.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.